Happy Monday, everyone. Let's get into it. It is officially Riftbound Unleashed preview season. There's a ton of cards to jump into today. Luckily, I get to bring two unique preview cards to you all on March 25th. I'm extremely excited for that, and thank Riot for that opportunity. But there's a ton of cards today that we can jump into, so let's get into it, starting with some of the new mechanics of the third set of Riftbound Unleashed. That first mechanic will be LeBlanc's token unit Reflection, which becomes a copy of something when played. It does not get that card's play effects. And so what this means is if you play a Reflection, you could target a friendly or enemy unit and become a copy of that. In the instance of a Mind Splitter, however, it won't take your opponent's card from their hand. But if you choose something like a Ferris Forerunner, it will still keep the Death Knell effect when it dies, creating those 3 might mech tokens. What's interesting about this is most of the LeBlanc cards that we'll see will make it temporary, which means it will die at the beginning of your next turn. However, it's rumored that LeBlanc will have some ways to prevent temporary effects from going off, potentially keeping those cards alive longer. I think there's some really cool combinations that can be done with this, and we'll look at some LeBlanc cards later, so very excited to jump into that. The second unique element of this set that we'll jump into is token battlefields. Now, the Baron reveal, almost everyone saw. Baron is a huge unit, 12 might, but it creates its own battlefield when it comes in, a unique third battlefield. And this one says units can move here from anywhere. We're still waiting for some rulings on, how do you score and win if there's 3 battlefields? Because currently when there's 2, you have to conquer both or hold for your 8th point. And so the question is, with Baron Pit, do you have to conquer all 3? Or hold, in which case this would be a pretty good control battlefield for those aggressive decks that you're trying to take care of. But very interesting nonetheless. As we move on though, Ivern also has a battlefield of his own, which is called Brush. The interesting thing about this token battlefield, though, is it's not a net new battlefield. It's actually a battlefield that goes on top of another one. And so Ivern himself can put this on a battlefield, whatever it may be, and it says, when you score here, you may replace this battlefield with the battlefield it replaced. So, for example, if Ivern puts his brush here and the opponent comes in, they can remove the brush. But while it exists, birds, cats, dogs, Poros, and Ivern units have +1 might. So just a way to buff Ivern and take away some of the text effects, like think Aspirin's Climb, you have to score to 9 to win the game. Brush could potentially overwrite that. Now, as we keep going on, there's this new leveling system and XP system in Unleashed, which is actually incredibly cool. And so there are units and spells and gear that are able to gain you XP. The unit equivalent of that is called Hunt, which says when I conquer or hold, gain 1 XP. If you're gaining more XP from Hunt, it will say something like Hunt 2, in which case when I conquer or hold, gain 2 XP. And the easiest way to think about the level system is the number of XP you have is the number of levels that you have. So in this case, level 6, when you have 6 XP, this Gem Hand Hunter has +1 might. And the cool thing about this is there's a lot of things that get stronger the higher level you are, but there's also cards in this set that let you spend XP to gain power. So there's going to be a lot of unique leveling cards in this set as well. Again, it is a jungling League of Legends themed set. Moving on, we have Abandon, which I think is a disgusting card that was printed, unfortunately. It gave purple another counterspell, even better than Hard Bargain, because you can't pave runes around it. That says Reaction. Counter a spell, return it to its owner's hand instead of putting it in their trash. So the one caveat to this is if you play a Falling Star and it gets abandoned, you could technically play it again that turn. However, you still have to pay the power costs. So Abandon is a great card to use when someone plays a Time Warp, throws away 4 runes, they're screwed. Yes, they could get it back in their hand, but they lose an entire turn and so much ramp. Incredible. But the actual, mechanic of the set that this card also has on it is Predict, which think of it as Vision from other cards, which says, look at the top card of your main deck, you may recycle it. So it just allows you to cycle through those cards in your deck. And the last new mechanic that we have of this set is called Ambush. And so we see it on this unit Inferna, which apparently is a Legends of Runeterra card that a lot of people liked, so I'd have to look into that more. But Ambush says you may play me as a reaction to a battlefield where you have units. Okay, and so Ambush is essentially what Rengar and Shin were already doing in previous sets. The difference is they wanted to make it a keyword so multiple units can have Ambush. And so in this case, if you're attacking in, you can play your Inferna as a +3 to any battlefield, but it's also a unit. And if you were defending, you could technically play your Inferna as a reaction as well. It would only get 1 might though in that instance. So those are all the new keywords. You have the LeBlanc token, you have the battlefield tokens, you have XP gain, you have predict where you can look at your cards, and you also have ambush. So moving on, let's start looking at what some of these cards look like, starting with Master Yi. So in this case, some of these are still in Chinese, so they're translated, so bear with that. But the Master Yi has a new legend coming in the set, so it'll be the first legend with a duplicate legend. People were speculating it might be a new color combination. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, Master Yi is still green and orange. But what Master Yi legend says is level. Your units gain +1 only if you have at least 6 experience. So the translation's kind of ugly here, but level 6. If you have 6 XP, your units all have +1 might. What's nice about this is at base, this is at battlefields, they don't have to be defending or attacking, so it helps them kind of dodge the spell break points, but it isn't as strong as the when I defend alone, obviously. But at level 11, your units enter ready. So what's nice about this is once you have 11 XP, all of your units have accelerate, which is incredibly, incredibly powerful. So people are thinking of this as like a slow control version of Master Yi, where you have to gain XP before you can actually become strong. So how do you actually spend that XP, or what do levels matter with? Well, Master Yi also has a new legend or hero unit, which is pretty impressive. It has 4 level breakpoints, with level 3 being it costs 2 energy and 1 power less, going all the way to level 11 where it costs 6 energy and 3 power less. But if you look at the cost of the card, it is 12 energy and 3 power. So you essentially have an unplayable champion unit for the majority of the game until you get enough XP. The coolest part about this card, though, is that at level 16, it can't be chosen by enemy spells and abilities, which I think is really, really powerful. So if you are able to get strong enough, not only does he enter ready because of your Master Yi, he can't be chosen by spells, and he costs 6 energy for 12. So I think there are a lot of incredible possibilities here if the leveling system is something that you can easily get to 11 XP, and I think that will be the hardest part. So jumping away from Master Yi, what we have is the card revealed by Skara, which is Ivern, as well as the overnumbered signature version. I think the overnumbered in this set are going to be absolutely gorgeous. I'm so excited to see. But Ivern says, when you conquer or hold, you may exhaust me to replace that battlefield with the brush battlefield. And it says what that is, which is birds, cats, dogs, and poros have +1, and it's always swapped back to when scored. So what's cool about this is it isn't just a hold effect, it's also a conquer effect, and it makes all of your tokens stronger there. So it's kind of like take your opponent's battlefield and make it good for you. What's also cool is you can kind of stack this with battlefield conquer effects. So for example, Candlelit Sanctum that says when you conquer, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, you can put them in any order. You can do that, then exhaust Ivern and put the brush on top of it, and you can essentially double use 2 unique battlefield effects to your favor. Also, what we see with signatures is they've been purple here. There's another signature also soon that is also purple. And so I'm wondering if that's going to be a set where signatures are purple and red because of the Unleashed color scheme, but TBD on that. Going to the Ivern champion unit, it says, as you play me, 6 might for 6 power, choose a bird, cat, dog, or poro, I gain that tag. When I conquer or hold, score 1 point if your units have all the following tags among them: bird, cat, dog, and poro. So essentially, Ivern can fill whatever tag you're missing, and then if you have all 4, you get rewarded and get an extra point. I think this is kind of gimmicky. It's going to be really hard. I mean, there's so much removal in this set. There's so many ways to kill. You have like Purple Draven, which isn't even played as much, where you can get a point if you want to combat. You have Purple Yasuo, where when he moves, you get a point. This feels like another way to do that. That is potentially true, because you could have your Bird, Cat, Dog, and Poro in your base safe, and then still conquer and get the extra point. But it feels very, very difficult to achieve. So interested to see if this is the Ivern that's played, or if another Ivern is played, but that's the Ivern champion unit. Now we can look at the other overnumbered legend that was revealed, which was Diana. So in this case, Diana is a blue and purple legend that has reaction, add 1 energy, but you can spend it only during showdowns. So this is interesting. We saw with Darius that 1 energy Legion was strong, but it was hard to constantly trigger. And I wonder if Diana will be the same, and maybe not. Maybe once you have a unit on a battlefield, you're always going to be in a showdown. Very, very interesting. I think the most amazing part about this, though, is the beautiful art by Alicia Du on the right. I love that it's kind of an alternate art that's like a little bit more anime than what we've seen from some of the previous overnumbered cards. Absolutely gorgeous. And again, it's got that purple signature, so I'm really interested to see how that looks in person once that comes out. So moving on, because we've got a ton of cards to look at, the next legend is Lilia, which is green and blue. And her legend ability is pay 4 energy, super high, tap her, to play a ready 3 might sprite unit token with temporary. So again, we're seeing a lot of temporary from both LeBlanc and Lilia, so I'm interested to see what other temporary cards we get. But Lilia says this ability costs 1 energy less for each friendly unit with temporary. So potentially, if you play a few sprite cards, you could tap her and maybe pay 2 energy for a 3 might sprite token that's ready, which is pretty powerful. So I'm interested to see how Lilia's cards turn out. And the green and blue is an interesting combination as well. So I want it to work. What I will say is Lilia has a disgusting signature spell, being Lilting Lullaby. So for 2 energy and 2 power of any color, you can reaction counter a spell, right? All spell countering is great. Think of this as a cheaper Wind Wall, right? Wind Wall is 3 and 2 power. This is 2 and 2 power, and could be any color, whereas Wind Wall has to be green. And on top of that, it says its controller can't play spells this turn, which is absolutely incredible. It is Bryn here, and I've said this, I tweeted this, some people don't agree. I very strongly believe it is Bryn here, but better, because it is cheaper and you can play it on your opponent's turn, right? What's nice about Bryn here is they can't play any card, but you can only play it on your turn, and your opponents can't play cards on like normal units on your turn anyways. With the ambush tag, that changes a little bit because they can play ambush cards now. So maybe that's why this is a less broken of a card. But you play Bryn here generally for 6 energy, just so they can't play spells while you're moving your units in. This now says on anyone's turn, my turn, your turn, I don't really care, you can't play spells again this turn. Phenomenal card. I just think it's going to be very interesting with ambush, and especially with some of these purple cards, right? Like if we go to abandon, well, purple now has another counter spell for 2. So very, very interesting when compared with Lilting and Lullaby, but I think this is going to be a great card, and if you're playing Lilia, it's obviously going to be a 3 of. Okay. We also have a Lilia unit. I don't think this one is particularly good, but it is 5 energy, 4 might, and it says whenever you play a token, I gain +1 might, and then friendly tokens gain tank. And so maybe as you make sprite tokens and other things, she keeps getting buffed up, and maybe you kind of are able to keep her alive. And because they have tank, maybe they can take damage for her and allow her to gank up. But that 5 energy breakpoint just is really tough. So we're looking for a cheaper Lilia unit, hopefully with the new Lilia that's announced. Now we can jump into LeBlanc, and I think LeBlanc is going to be very interesting. I want to play LeBlanc so bad. I just think purple's so strong that if you don't play purple, you're going to really have a bad time. But LeBlanc says when you conquer or hold, I love a lot of these legends that have conquer or hold. I think hold is too weak. Any legend that gives you an ability when you hold is way too conditional, and you're just missing out on value. It says you may discard 1 and exhaust her. So discarding 1 is a pretty heavy penalty. To play a ready reflection unit token there, it becomes a copy of another unit there. You give it temporary. Okay. So when you play that ready reflection unit token there, that means at the battlefield, right? Where you conquer or hold, and it can only become a copy of another unit there. So that's really, really important to call out, that you're essentially duplicating whatever unit you conquer with, and it adds extra might so that that unit or that battlefield can't be lost that turn, right? It will die at the end. LeBlanc's signature spell, however, is a little bit more flexible. So for 3 energy and 2 power, mirror image, you can choose a unit, any unit, at anywhere, and play a ready reflection unit token to your base. It becomes a copy of that unit. Give it temporary. So again, we're seeing with all these reflection units, they'll die at the start of your next turn before scoring. But let's say they have a Ferris Forerunner on a battlefield. They paid 6 energy, 1 power for it. You can create a ready Ferris Forerunner, run that in, it dies, they trade, and then you get your 3 might tokens, or 3 mech might tokens, and then they also get 2 3 might mech tokens. But you effectively traded for 1 spell. And so it's very, very interesting what you can do with this card, especially if you start running Karthus, which is also yellow. You can do some interesting death knell capabilities, and maybe you double the amount of mech tokens that you get, or something else. People have said this is really interesting with Echo as well, which readies your runes when he dies. So I think there's a lot of capabilities with these reflections. Okay. Moving on, we have Kha'Zix. Kha'Zix is another XP jungler like Master Yi in this set, orange and purple, which is interesting. So competing with Sivir, competing with Misfortune. And he says, when you win a combat, gain 1 XP. I like this because it feels like Draven, but a little bit more balanced, where you get rewarded for winning combat. Notice, by the way, it says here, this might be an allusion to something. It doesn't say you win a combat if only your units remain after a battle. So I think they're changing the way combats work to nerf Draven. That might be foreshadowing. It says, when I win a combat, gain 1 XP. So you can always spend 1 XP to buff a unit, which that's like, think of Lee Sin as pay 1 to buff a unit. This says win a combat, you kind of have a power bank to buff a unit. I like that. And you can spend 2 XP to move an exhausted friendly unit from a battlefield to its base. And what a lot of people have been saying, okay, what if you, move in Yone, smack a unit in their base, pull him back so he's safe. I think there's a lot of potential here. And luckily, we've seen the Kha'Zix overnumbered as well, again, with a purple signature. It looks to be a little bit less sparkly. That might just be because this isn't animated, but I think it's a really beautiful card nonetheless. For the Kha'Zix unit, I think this one's really lackluster. I'm going to be completely honest, but it's 5 energy, 1 power, so already pretty bad, understated. And it says hunt, so when you conquer, gain 1 experience, fine. And it says, when I attack, you may spend 3 experience, which is a heavy cost, by the way. 3 experience is not easy to come by. And if you do, deal damage to a chosen enemy unit here equal to my might. So it's just a worse Yasuo because you need to have 3 XP to even activate it. I don't know. I think it's a little bit too gimmicky, and it's not my favorite. Okay, let's jump to the next legend here, which is Vex. Green and purple, which says, when you or an ally, they have that in there for 2v2s or any kind of multiplayer gaming, hold, you may exhaust me to draw 1. And I know people on Twitter have been kind of up in arms because, hey, Draven, you can even see it in the replies right here, also have to exhaust it, LMAO, because holding is very difficult. Winning combat is easy. So it's crazy how some of these got through, but that's okay. And so you can exhaust to draw 1 if you hold. I think Vex's ability is pretty bad. Actually really, really bad. So the only thing that maybe can help her is if she has a great champion unit that comes out, which the normal Vex is already pretty good, or if she has a great signature spell. But I'm predicting that you would always choose Aurelia over Vex, or figure something else out, because I don't think Vex is that good, unfortunately. Next we have Pike, which is our red-purple, which has been like the demons of the set. Essentially, anybody who can run the Miracle package is red and purple right now. And what this says is pay 1 energy and exhaust your Pike. You can return a friendly unit from a battlefield to your hand, create a gold token. I think this either will be meta-defining or completely useless, and I don't think there's really any in between. So I think if there's a meta where bouncing units back to your hand is super important, this will be incredibly good. I think if there's a tempo heavy meta where that just doesn't matter, then you're just losing tempo. You're taking a unit back for nothing. I mean, a gold token is nice, I guess, but you are just setting yourself so far behind your opponent and then playing that unit again next turn, and you're already behind based on the power you spent. So very, very interested to see how this goes. Next, we're kind of going to start looking at some of the other cards revealed. And so this first one is Ayaskala, which says, when I hold, at the start of your next main phase, you may move an enemy unit to this battlefield. For 7 power, 1 energy, 7 energy, 1 power, and 6 might. What I think is interesting about this is it says the start of your next main phase. And they're very intentional by that, which means you can still channel 2 more runes, ready your runes, draw your card, your A, B, C, D, and then you can move a unit to the battlefield. Which means you should be able to win that fight because now you have all your runes up, everything else, versus just moving at the beginning and having nothing up and potentially getting screwed over. So I like that. I think it's a really interesting card. It's like a Blitzcrank that doesn't go back to your hand if you want to look at that, but it has to hold first. Some potential, right? And as we think about Vex, which is purple-green, maybe there's an incentive to holding because you get to draw your card as well with Vex. So I think there's some possibilities here. I don't know how I feel, but it could be played. Next, we'll look at Otacon, which is extremely expensive, 10 energy, 3 power, 7 might. And it says you may kill a friendly unit as additional cost to play me. If you do, I cost 1 energy less for each energy it costs and power less for each power it costs. So depending on what you kill, this might be like a baited hook equivalent, right? Where you can kill something that costs, 5 energy, 3 power that you were able to summon through baited hook, and then kill that to play this. So I think there's some interesting things here. It has ganking, and it says when I attack, the defender must kill one of their units here. What's funny is someone then quoted this and said, I'm just going to play my LeBlanc reflection on this, move it in, and kill your Otacon for free, because the defender has to kill one of their units. So I think it's very, very interesting. It's kind of like a cold a week effect on one unit. Could see play, but is expensive. Next, we have another ambush unit, Rengar, which is 5 energy, 1 power, 6 might. It says ambush. You may play me as a reaction to a battlefield. So that alone is pretty good. But it also says I can be played to a battlefield where there are enemy units, even if you don't have units there. So what's nice is you can attack in with a Rengar, throw him down as a 6 might body. And what I think is interesting, I want to confirm this is just a better Deadbloom because it is understated by 1 energy, right? Deadbloom is 8 energy, 2 power for 8 might. This is 5 energy, 1 power for 6 might. So I want to see if he really can just attack on his own. I'm not sure if this is unique from the other ambushes, where here it says you may play me as a reaction to a battlefield where you have units, right? The Rengar himself says there don't have to be units there. So I can be played to a battlefield where there are enemy units, kind of like a Deadbloom. So Rengar might have a lot of capability in the orange deck and might be a really good way to punish people. If you go second, you have 3 runes, then next turn you have 5 and a power, boom, you can throw them in. So just something to think about. He also has his overnumbered right here, and by overnumbered I mean alternate art, excuse me, where it just says ambush, I can be played to a battlefield where there are enemy units. I'm not sure if that's a translating thing or if the text just falls off on the full art, so I'm interested to see how that's printed. Okay, now we're jumping in some other cards, and Jhin has been revealed. He has not been revealed as a legend yet, but people are speculating because there's been red and blue Jhin cards that there's going to be a Jhin legend. But Jhin is 4 energy, 1 power, for 4 might, and he says deflect, a common thing, ganking as well. But what's interesting is he says when I move, add 1 energy and 1 power as a resource. And so people are really excited about this. I'm interested to see how this works out because it feels like there aren't many red cards that ready anyone besides like Sundisk. So maybe you could run Jhin in like a Jinx build, which would be interesting. But I think there's a lot of potential for when I move, give you a ton of resources. The next Jhin card that we see is the alternate art version of this, which is just the Dark Star or Dark Cosmic. I'm going to get butchered for that. But I think it's a very pretty skin in League, and I think it looks good here. And then we see 2 spells. So Upstage Comedy, repeat 2, cost 2, says ready a unit. Think of this as, that orange card. I can't even think of it right now, but the Pit Crew, not Pit Crew, but the ready a unit for 3. This now is for 4. You can ready 2 units, which is incredible. You can pull a unit back. You can move a unit in, gank with it. Now that I think about this, hey, Jen says, when I move, add 1 energy, 1 power. Now, if for some instance you can reduce the cost of the spell, you can ready Jen, move him, ready him, move him, he ganks, right? And at 8, you could move him in, move him in, move him back. So a lot of possibilities here. And that next spell for 2 energy, 1 power, Dancing Grenade, Jen's Q in League of Legends, says deal 2 damage to a unit. Its controller may play this spell again for power. If they do, this deals 1 additional bonus damage for each time the spell has dealt damage this turn. So essentially, you can do it. That person getting hit can pay power. If they do, it bounces back to one of yours for 3, and you can pay power and bounce it back to one of theirs for 4. And so essentially, if you keep doing it, it could bounce quite a few times and do quite a bit of damage. Next, we'll look at a Vi unit, which is interesting. It is 4 energy for 3 might, so pretty understated. Vi Hot-Headed. 2 really cool arts. We have the alternate art on the left this time. It has Deflect, and it says 2 energy, 1 power, double my might this turn. And what people have said, which I think is very interesting, is this does not say tap, it does not say exhaust, it doesn't say do this. That can be done infinitely. So as long as you have energy and power, you can continue to double her might. 6, 12, 24, it gets very strong very fast. So very, very interesting possibility here is kind of the finishing card. But again, we have Thwonks, we have Fight or Flights. There's a lot of ways to punish this Vi, and Deflect it, as we've seen, isn't strong enough to stop some of those. So very interested to see if this Vi sees play. Next, as we talked about Baron and the battlefield that's created, we also heard about ultimate rarity. So for the gamblers in Riftbound, which myself included, love getting the rare cards, they have an ultimate rarity card. Very hard to find. They said it's under 0.1%, and that even was like a hypothetical percentage chance. It's a rare, unique, overnumbered card of Baron Nashor, and there's going to be only 1 of this rarity per this set, and there's not going to be this rarity in every set. So it's going to be very, very, very interesting what this card looks like, how they make it, how you find it. I have no idea what to expect, but I'm very, very excited to see what that looks like. So we're rounding it out with a few more cards. This one's a little blurry, but we have Ash Focused Champion unit. When you play me, choose an opponent. They reveal their hand. Choose a card revealed this way and banish it. When they hold, return it to their hand, even if I'm no longer on board. So this is an interesting, cheaper way to get a card out of their deck. It's banished, right? It's not in their trash. It's not in their deck. They can't get it again unless they hold a battlefield. I feel like this is kind of conditional. It feels like a win more card, where if you have Prio on the board and you have spells up and runes up, you can take a card away and they don't get it back. However, if they are an aggressive deck, or if you can only hold 1 battlefield, I feel like often they are going to find a way to be able to hold a battlefield and get that card back. So we'll see, but I think it's not as good as people are thinking. Hopefully I'm wrong. Next, we have Vile Maw. 8 energy, 2 power, green for 8 might. It has Ambush, so you can play it as a reaction to a battlefield where you have units. That could be one where you're attacking, play them in, or they're attacking and play them as a defender. And it says enemy units here with less might than me don't deal combat damage, which is insane. So, if you're playing in the miracle meta of today and you attack in with a 2 might unit, they say, I've got nothing, or they attack in, boom, you play Vile Maw, every single one of their units dies. It's that simple. Now he can be rebuked, you still lose. Rebuke's an incredible card. And he says, when I hold, draw 1. So it's kind of 2 effects on 1. Think of it as a Dead Bloom Predator. Think of it as, Grove, where you draw 1 when you hold. So it's a lot of effects in 1 card. I think it's got a lot of potential. Next, we have Nidalee, which people have been saying Kiana's dead now, for 3 energy and a power, instead of 4 energy and a power, a 4 might body, Ambush, by the way, so you can play it as a reaction when you're attacking, when you're defending, which is a really strong keyword. And it says, when I win a combat, draw 1. Right? So if you play it as defense and you win that combat because they weren't expecting it, you get to draw a card, you get to hold, it's great. Or if you play it as offense, it's a Kaisa, but a little bit cheaper, right? Because Kaisa's 4 might. So it's a very, very, very interesting card. It might be better than Kaisa, and I like that it is not that legendary rarity, so it hopefully will be easily accessible. Got another Chinese card here. It's called the Azure Carved Golem. I think the wording might be a little bit off, but Blue Sentinel, right? It's blue buff. It's 4 energy, 1 power for 4 might, and it says shield +2, so it's already kind of a tanky body, and it says hold abilities while I'm holding here, trigger an additional time. When I hold, at the start of your next main phase, gain 1 power. And so everyone's been saying, oh, my green Ari with this card is going to go crazy. I think it is interesting, but it might be too expensive and too conditional. But with Felsfanger and some other things here, you might be able to do some pretty crazy stuff. All right, wrapping up here, we have the Hunting the Snow Wolf, 4 energy, 1 power for 6 might. So pretty well statted with Ambush, so you can play it as a reaction to where your units are. But as an additional cost to play it, you must kill a bird, cat, dog, or Poro. And if you end up killing a Poro and it's your only unit on the battlefield, you still can play your unit there, right? Some other units that say like kill a unit to play me, you can't play to a battlefield, there's nothing left. So this one is saying, hey, if you do kill a Poro on a battlefield, you can replace it with this unit. Very, very interesting to see how this works. Rip Lonely Poro is an interesting one too. You play your, from Chai TCG, good call out. Yeah, you get your card draw and you get to play a big unit. Okay, 2 more Chinese cards here. We have the Cursed Sarcophagus on the left, and then we have the Bounty List on the right. The Cursed Sarcophagus is 4 energy, 1 power, and it says, when you play me, banish all units in your trash. Exhaust, you may play a unit banished by this card. All costs must be paid. I don't know how I feel about this card. I think 4 and a power is already so slow to have a huge trash. It's just really slow. And maybe this is just how like control decks are going to be, is at that point when you have 12 runes, paying 4 at a power is nothing. You play that, you banish all your massive units, and then now you can play them again and again and again by tapping each turn. So interesting. And then next we have this Bounty List, which is 1 energy gear, and it says, when you play me, choose a type. And Misfortune's a type, Demacia is a type, Poro's a type. So it's really any of those tags that go up here above the color of the bar. And it says exhaust, choose a unit with this chosen type to give -2 might this turn. So it's a way to debuff a unit. And so if you're playing against a Poro deck or a dragon deck, you can say, I want to give a dragon -2 might this turn. All right, that being said, folks, that is all our reveals from today. I'm so incredibly excited for the future of the reveals. I can't wait to share them with everybody. And again, March 25th, I will be revealing 2 cards. I cannot believe it. Shout out to Riot. Thank you so much for working with small creators. Absolutely love that. And I can't wait to bring you more content as more and more Unleashed is revealed. Again, I'm also Atlanta based. So for anyone coming to the Atlanta Regional at the end of April, please look out for me there. I cannot wait to meet more people. I cannot wait to build more relationships in the Riftbound community. And again, this game has just been so incredible for really everything it's brought me and my friends. So that being said, happy Monday, happy preview season of Unleashed Riftbound, and I will see you guys all soon. Thanks.